What's up, Pianote? Today we're going to be talking about chords, and specifically what chords sound good together and how can you recognize those chords within a chord progression. Really good songwriting can use chords to further enhance the emotion of a song, so we're going to really dive into that so that you can hear any chord by the end of this video. Let's jump into it. So I'm going to be using diatonic chords to explain this video. So in the key of C, we would call this the 1 chord. D minor is 2 minor, the 3 minor, the 4, 5, 6, 7 is diminished, which we will talk about, and then back to the 1. So those are the diatonic chords, but I'm also going to jump outside the key as well. So if I said 5 minor, I'm talking about the G minor. If I said the 4 minor, that's F minor. So those are sounds that you don't hear quite as much in music, but we're going to tackle all the most popular chords that sound good together. All right, our first example is the 1 to the 2 minor chord. So the song we're going to use is Tennessee Whiskey because pretty much the whole song is jumping between the 1 chord to the 2 minor in the key of A. So that's A to B minor. So it's going to sound something like this.
You're right smooth. It's Tennessee Whiskey.
All right, so for Tennessee Whiskey, Chris Stapleton's just using the A chord to B minor, which is that 1 to the 2 minor chord. And it kind of sounds like it's a little bit uplifting, where you can kind of keep going and keep building that wherever you want to go. But there's that 2 minor. Just kind of get that sound in your head. All right, our next chord is going to be the 1 chord to the 3 minor chord. So the song I'm going to use is Hey There Delilah. This one's in the key of D. So in the key of D, D chord is 1, F sharp minor is that 3 minor. So this is what it sounds like in the key of D, the original.
Hey there, Delilah, what's it like in New York City? I'm 1,000 miles away, but girl, tonight you look so pretty. Yes, you do.
So, Hey There Delilah, 1 to 3 minor. That's what that sounds like in the key of D, but you can take that progression and start on any chord. So if I start on C, it goes from C to E minor. That's your new 1 to 3, because that's what you want to get out of this video is how each chord kind of sounds, each function of the chord. All right, so the 4 chord. This is one of the most popular chords in music. And the most popular song that we can use for this is Imagine, going from C, the 1, to F, the 4. The 1 to the 4 chord, that's in C. If I did that on D, that's what it sounds like. Same chord functions, just in a different key. So it's really important to practice these in all of the keys. So the 5 chord, this is one of the most popular chords in all of music, the 1, 5, 6, 4 progression. So the song I chose for this one is Someone Like You by Adele. Going from A to the E, those first 2 chords. The other 2 chords are 6 to the 4. But those first 2 chords, 1, 5, those are the most important ones that you need to remember.
Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing.
So the 5 chord is one of the most popular chords to go to. It's part of the 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, just because when you do land on that 5, you can go right back home and it sounds really nice. That 5 is an awesome way to either resolve or to go to the 6 minor. You can go pretty much anywhere from the 5 chord, which is why it's used so much in pop music. The 6 minor chord. This is an extremely important chord because it's the relative minor to the major chord. All that means is that they share the same notes, both major and minor, just depends on where you start. So the song that I'm using is Earth Angel, and the version I'm using is from Back to the Future's Enchantment Under the Sea dance. So it's gonna sound like this.
Earth angel, will you be mine?
All right, so this 6 chord is really, really good because you can take a song that's going from major, and if you walk down to that 6, all of a sudden this whole song is gonna be in the minor key, or you can just use it as a passing chord to get to the 4 or the 5. So it's used a ton in pop music just because it's that, gives it that relative minor kind of feel. Okay, we're at the diminished chord. So this is the diminished 7 chord. A lot of the times you'll hear music teachers say, oh, stay away from that chord, like we'll talk about it later. We're gonna talk about it right now. How do you use it? This is a really hard one to find. A lot of people like to use diminished chords just as like passing chords, kind of like that, but to hear it as used as the actual 7th degree. So in the key of E flat, the D is the 7th, which means that the diatonic chord would be D diminished. And a lot of people think like, how can we use that in a song? So I'm gonna actually flip into a minor key now, the relative minor, C minor. That's the same key as E flat major, or same flats, I should say, not the same key, C minor. So this song is This Love, and the last chord in the progression uses that diminished chord. So really listen for that. Right there.
The chaos that can show my mind.
And it sounds like kind of scary, but then it kind of gets right back into this key of C minor. So that's how you use that diminished chord in songs.
Okay, so if you want a little bit more information on chords, especially diatonic chords, I've got you covered with my course, The Power of Chords, which you can find in the Pianote members area, and we've got a free 7-day trial for you below this video. Okay, back to your lesson.
All right, so those are all the diatonic chords so far. So diatonic chords being everything inside the key, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, using all our diatonic functions. So now what we're gonna do is start to listen to chords that are outside of the key. Because a lot of the times when you're writing songs, you might get a little bored by just using 1, 5, 6, 4 all the time. It's good to know how to hear those, but if there's a different sound you want, like you hear a song on the radio, you're like, oh, like what chord is that? I have no idea what it is. These are gonna be a lot of those chords that you can use outside of the key. So the first one that's outside of the key is the 2 major chord. So this is technically a secondary dominant from G, but if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We're just gonna play a D major chord in the key of C. So I reference that as 2 major. So this song is CeeLo Green's Forget You. There's that 2 major chord. All right, so the 2 in diatonic land should be D minor, but that song's not gonna sound very good as. It doesn't sound like the song, right? It's gotta be that 2 major. Okay, so now we're jumping into the key of G to talk about the 3 major chord. So in the key of G, the 3rd note is B. So typically that's a B minor chord, but in this one, we're gonna use that B major. And you can use this for any key again. If you're in the key of C, the 3 major would be E major instead of E minor. And this is used in songs like Billy Joel's New York State of Mind. One of my favorite chords to use. The example we're gonna use today though is Creep by Radiohead. The very beginning of the chorus uses this one, this is the 1 chord, and then we jump to that 3 major. Really interesting sounding chord. So if you want your songs to sound like Creep, start implementing that 3 major chord.
But I'm a creep. I'm a
Our next chord is the 4 minor chord. So we're actually gonna look at this in the key of C. The 4 chord is F. The 4 minor chord we're gonna make F minor. And this is actually a great way to resolve songs as well. If you ever need to go back to your 1 chord, the 4 minor is one of the coolest ways you can do that. And it just gives it a different resolution because a lot of songs end with 5-1, like G7, 1, but if you end on that 4 minor, it sounds really pretty. The very end of When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars goes from a 4 major chord, and then it turns into minor, and then resolves on major.
When I was your man, do all the things I should have done. When I was your man.
Really cool sounding. So that one, they're actually implementing both the major and the minor. That's a really great way to resolve back to the home bass 1 chord. All right, the next chord we're gonna talk about is the 5 minor chord. So this is one of Coldplay's secret weapons because they use this so much in their songs. It's kind of like their musical signature, if you will. So, when the song clocks, that second chord is that 5 minor chord. Because the 5 chord is typically B flat, but if you play B flat, major, it just doesn't sound right? It's that 5 minor. Okay, so in clocks, they use that 5 minor chord for the entire song. But in the song Yellow, most of the song is going from 1 to the major 5, which is fine. That sounds really nice. But at the very end, just once, they use the 5 minor. And that's the thing with all of these chords that you're using, you don't always have to overuse them. Sometimes if you just use it once, it kind of adds, like your musical signature to the song. And it's really nice where typically, here's what it sounds like with a regular 5 major chord. And at the very end, here's what it sounds like with the 5 minor chord.
Look how they shine for you, and all the things that you do.
So they just use it once at the very end because these chords will give you a lot of power. All this knowledge is power. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility. All right, now we're gonna talk about the 6 major chord. These are all chords again from outside of the key because 6, we were talking about, is typically the minor chord. In the key of G, it'd be E minor. But now we're gonna talk about G to E major. So it's gonna sound something like this. From G to E. The 6 major chord is really nice because it does sound good on its own, but if you make it a dominant, it can also be great to transpose. So if I'm going from G chord, that E dominant will be the 5 of the 1 chord, and then I can go back down, make another one, F sharp, which takes me to B. And I can just keep transposing with that 6 major chord. That's kind of like that secret transposing chord.
On the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay.
The next chord is the flat 3 chord. You don't hear this a ton in music, but when you do, it's a very distinctive sound, that flat 3. So the song I'm gonna use is Hold On, I'm Comin' by Sam and Dave. You've probably heard the song. The first 2 chords in that progression. From the A flat to the B major. Because I'm in the key of A flat right now. So that flat 3 is that's kind of what it sounds like. Very cool. It really helps the song kind of build that energy, that momentum. All right, so the next chord we have is the flat 6 major chord. So this one is going from G to E flat. So it's kind of hard to imagine how those kind of 2 chords go together because it's definitely not a flat diatonic chord because it's the flat 6 and it's a major chord. So the song that reuses this really well is Boston's More Than a Feeling, and they use it right at the tail end of their chorus. Sounds like this. 1, 4, 6, 5, 1, 4, flat 6. And they kind of resolve on that 6 minor right after. So that is a really kind of happy tension, which definitely gives you like a sense of wonder when you play that chord. So the flat 7 chord, this is a chord that was really, really popular back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. You would hear this all the time in pop music and in rock music. You could hear it in Sweet Child of Mine, D chord, going down to the flat 7, C. Or in Sweet Home Alabama. The most popular example is the flat 7 chord at the end of Hey Jude. first two chords, let's listen to that. 1, flat 7. It's using the 4 chord in that progression as well, but that main chord is that flat 7 because it doesn't do it through the entire song, just for the outro. And they use that because that's a really cool kind of chord progression to solo over. Okay, so that's a lot of chords that we just threw at you. So make sure when you're starting off, just start off in diatonic land. Start off with that 2 minor, the 3 minor, the 4 major, stuff like that. Especially when you're playing like progressions like the 1, 5, 6, 4, you're really gonna start to pick out, oh, there's the 6 minor chord, oh, there's the 4 major chord. Once you get good at that, move on to chords that are outside of the key. So that's the 2 major chord, that 5 minor chord, the Coldplay, that secret chord, the 4 minor chord to resolve really nicely to the C, or the 6 major chord to transpose into a different key. All these different chords can add different elements into your music, and now when you're listening to songs on the radio, you'll be able to not only hear what the chord is, know what the chord is, but also implement it into your own music, your own compositions. All right, guys, so that's it. Let me know what your favorite chord is down below. Mine is personally the minor 5 chord. It just sounds so beautiful within a progression, but let me know what yours is down below. And if you want to get more out of your lesson, more out of chords, make sure you sign up for our Pianote free 7-day trial, because there you're going to get so many more chords and so much more knowledge. So definitely check that out if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys next time.